The overall appearance of the finished building depends primarily on the quality of the installation of the flashing, gutters, and trim. Keep all gutters and flashing lines straight. Make all bends sharp and neat. Closely control end joints and laps and ensure edges are not jagged, dented, crimped, or serrated. Install E-flashing and gutters from the rear to the front of the building. This will conceal any exposed raw seams when looking down the sidewall from the front. Assemble as many sections of the gutter on the ground as can be safely handled and lifted by the crew. The first step will consist of mounting the provided pre-cut J-trim around all doors and framed openings. Insulation and sheeting will be placed snugly into this trim for maximum sealing of the building. Here we see the framed opening trim placed and fastened with self-drilling screws provided in your RHINO package. You will start with the top trim and then mount each side trim. No cutting is required. All trim is sized and pre-cut at the factory for factory-located framed openings. Here you see the space on the trim where the insulation and sheeting is placed for a tight seal. Install trim around personnel doors, starting with the sides. This trim is affixed in the same manner as framed openings. Here you will install the sides first. Before installing the top trim plate, you will use a nibbler or tin snips to cut a lap at each end and bend down. When you mount this top trim, the lap fits right over the side trim. This step is performed in order to provide for proper water drainage. Notice here that the trim was set approximately 1/2 inch from the edge of the door frame. The building shown here has an overhang on one end wall. An optional soffit package has been ordered that will attractively trim this portion of the structure. You see here that the top trim has been mounted on top of the wall panels with closure strips mounted below, conforming to the panel configuration. First, you mount the soffit panels to the underside of the overhang. Always work from the bottom of the pitch to the top. Fasten each panel according to your erection instructions. You will then install the rake trim to the top edge as shown here, again working from the bottom of the pitch to the top. All rake trim is pre-cut at the factory, so no customized trimming should be necessary except at corners. After the rake trim on either side of the peak is installed, you will then install the peak cap. Make sure it is perfectly level before fastening. Your next trimming step will include the corner trim. Place carefully into position and fasten. Now install a short piece of rake trim on the side of the overhang. Install a closure strip here as shown. The trim around this top corner is first assembled on the ground. First, align the rake trim to the gutter at right. You will then attach an end plate to the gutter to stop water flow. You will first caulk around all sides as shown. Place approximately 1 inch inside gutter and drill on all sides according to manual instructions. Using a pop rivet applicator, you will connect the end plate with rivets, then fit the rake trim to the gutter. It will be attached as shown by pre-drilling holes for pop rivets. Make sure that the corner is perfectly square before final fasteners are affixed. You will now raise the corner assembly into place and fasten with self-tapping fasteners. All laps and gutter should be riveted as shown, then caulked from the top. The gutter downspout location will be indicated in your plans. Before mounting the top gutter, be sure to measure from the previous gutter strip to the desired downspout location. Then on the ground, you will transfer this measurement on the gutter and mark gutter for a square cutout. Drill a hole to allow for cutting with a nibbler or tin snips. Cut out the downspout opening according to manual instructions. Then bend out each lap as shown. Each lap will allow for fastening the downspout. Next, affix downspout brackets to the wall panels as shown. Here you will mount 3 brackets per downspout. Place the top gutter that will attach to the downspout and affix with fasteners. Here you see the opening directly positioned over the brackets. Place the downspout up into the opening. You will then drill and pop rivet as shown here. Then pop rivet to each bracket on 3 sides. Most erectors choose to mount a row of insulation just ahead of the installation of each wall panel. This way, insulation cannot be blown out of position by high winds. In this presentation, we will show both low-E insulation as well as the more commonly used fiberglass blanket insulation. Low-E insulation is affixed to the bottom and top of end walls by applying the mastic supplied by RHINO with your order. Apply mastic, being careful not to stretch it during application. Then remove paper covering. All seams between insulation strips are taped from the inside on all walls and ceilings. Blanket fiberglass insulation is much thicker, and the technique for installation is slightly different. Here we see the erector applying a roll of double-sided tape to the base angle. This is what will hold the insulation in place at the bottom prior to the panel installation. A pre-cut bundle of material is hoisted to the roof and dropped into place. The material is then rolled over the eave strut and secured at the top using a 2x4 piece of wood and a vice grip. This holds the insulation in place in order for the workers at the bottom to neatly stretch and secure the insulation with the double-sided tape. They then trim the insulation at the bottom. The side panel is then placed into position and insulation is trimmed at the top. Before mounting wall panels, you must first place closure strips at the foundation lip as shown. Here you see the erector applying a mastic strip to the concrete lip. The mastic for the insulation was previously applied to the metal. Now, foam rubber closure strips are applied over the mastic and pressed firmly to seal the connection. As previously shown, the insulation is dropped and placed over the top mastic strip. Here again, these steps are usually performed just ahead of the mounting of each wall panel. Closure strips at the top are mounted after wall sheeting is completed. Here we see closures inserted into the gap between the trim and panel. Lap screws will then permanently affix closures. On this building, we are installing our panel for all walls. Be sure to refer to your RHINO manual for proper drilling procedures for the type of panel that you order. Our panels are designed for both roof and wall applications. Sheeting can start from either end of the building. However, by applying the sheet towards the direction of the prevailing view, the overlap line on the side of every third rib will be less visible. Where heavy prevailing winds occur, place the edge to be lapped into the wind. Until your panels are attached on end walls, your purlins may tend to sag a bit between rigid frames. Here, after taking a measurement from girt to girt at the rigid frame, erectors mark a girt and check the measurement on the framing girt between the frames. They will then clamp the girt at the same height to ensure that there will be no sagging. A 2x4 cut to length and placed between girts will also do a good job. Perfectly straight girts provide for a much stronger building and a neater appearance after sheeting is applied. The preferred method of sheeting installation includes pre-drilling of sheets before they are placed into position and mounted. This both speeds up the erection process and ensures that exposed screws follow a perfectly straight line. Here the erector measures the purlin heights from the foundation lip. He then transfers these measurements to a sheeting bundle on the ground. Notice here that the stack is evenly aligned at the ends, and a clamp at one corner ensures that the sheets will not move apart during the drilling. You will then drill your marks. Again, be sure to refer to your plans for the proper drilling patterns for the type of panel that is ordered. On this building, wall panels on the end wall must be cut to form around framed openings and for the roof pitch at top. There are several methods for cutting wall panels. Here we see the erector measuring one panel from bottom to top in order to mark for cutting the roof pitch angle. He uses a special die-formed cutting unit that conforms to the configuration of R panels and cuts in a single swipe. Using a nibbler or tin snips, panels are also easily cut horizontally, as shown here. Another method of cutting panels utilizes an electrical shear. Here, a shear comes in handy for cutting vertically through the panel. After sidewall panels are attached, you will now install top trim. Top trim is screwed to the top girt with self-drilling screws. Along the side walls, this will cover the roof panels and roof insulation. Now let's go up on the roof. Insulation under the roof panels are installed much like wall panels. A strip is laid in just ahead of the installation of each roof panel. Mastic strips along the top girt attach the insulation. Here we are installing PBR panels on the roof with special purlin-bearing legs. Roof panels with purlin-bearing legs are a special feature from RHINO. An extra lap of steel is included on each panel to significantly increase roof support and provide more metal-to-metal contact. You should refer to your erection drawings for the proper sequence in installing panels and affixing them to purlins. Inside closure strips are installed at roof level as shown here. 2 rows of mastic are applied to top girts. The outside row accepts the roof panel as shown here, and the inside row accepts the insulation. Closure strips for the end wall connection will be shown later. Always install roof panels from the bottom of the pitch to the top. This keeps the lap away from natural water flow. After carefully aligning panels from the bottom, drill roof screws, one at the top and one at the bottom, then periodically between bottom and top. Doing it this way ensures that each panel stays properly aligned. Here we see a mastic strip applied to the end lap. It is easier to apply mastic to roof panels on the ground before they are lifted to the roof. You will now prepare for installing the ridge cap panel. It is important to lay ridge cap panels directly after each row of roof panel in sequence. This ensures that the roof panels never get out of alignment. Here, the erector lays mastic strips on each roof panel and previous peak cap. RHINO provides die-formed ridge caps. This type of crest panel is manufactured to conform exactly to the desired panel configuration, providing more metal-to-metal contact for greater strength and a tighter weather seal. Starting at the corners, drill each ridge cap as shown. Then drill on each side of major lap. With number 14 lap screws, screw in the major laps as shown. At the end of each day during roof panel installation, it is very important to broom off installed panels, sweeping away any metal shavings left by self-drilling fasteners. Any time after the basic framing process, overhead doors can be mounted. There are many types of overhead doors to choose from, and some customers prefer to use a local vendor for purchase and installation. Here we will view a drum-style overhead door. You will first mount the upper cylinder according to factory instructions. There are a variety of ways to do this depending upon which model you will choose. They all come with a bracket assembly that attaches to the frame. After the top drum is installed, cut open the drum protective wrapping. Manually pull out door approximately 4 feet and discard wrapping. You will then place overhead door tracking on either side of the framed opening and fasten. The last step will be to mount door stops at specified locations and fasten in place to frames. These brackets stop the door at the cylinder to prevent overwinding.